Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab on the Fantasy Football Universe. I am Aaron St. Dennis. Follow me everywhere at FF Mad Scientist. Joined today by Steve from Average Joe's, who is the most handsome man in fantasy football, or so I've heard. How's it going?
I'm good. I appreciate the compliments. It's hard to compete with you, but I absolutely will take that every single time.
Oh, see, I'm having a hard time here with the lighting. Too light, too dark, too light, too. It's been a hell of a day for me. I am drinking on the show, so that tells you how things are going today. So, Dallas Cowboys. Before we get into it, though, you want to take a second. I know it says Average Joe's, but you want to, plug what it is you do, where you're doing it, all that fun jazz.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on obviously X, AVG Joe's _FF. Also on obviously YouTube, Average Joe's Fantasy Football. I also do some articles here and there for IDP Plus, so those guys are awesome. But yeah, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and then of course YouTube as well.
Oh, me too. I write for IDP Plus as well, but we started our own thing this off season, so 99% of my effort's gone there. So I couldn't tell you, with the exception of 2 or 3 people, who else writes for IDP Plus with me, because I haven't really got to do much. I've kind of been AFK all off season here. So, all right, let's get into it. We'll start with the QB room. It is, hopefully, as a Cowboys fan, not exciting. Dak Prescott, QB4 last year, going off the board as QB9. I have a lot of shares of him. He's a good value. Backed up by Trey Lance, looking to find new life, and Cooper Rush. What are your thoughts here? I guess basically it's where are you comfortable with Dak? I think he's a screaming value at 9. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he continues to be disrespected in a lot of rankings and mock drafts and ADPs. It's understandable, right? He's not a rushing quarterback that a lot of people, really go after, So I understand that, but the fact that there's really no rushing game for the Cowboys, Dak will be forced to be a prominent piece in this offense that continues to have success. So QB9 is an absolute steal for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I have a lot of shares of him. And he's actually been one of the ones. There's a group of him, Kyler, Herbert, Lawrence, where I've even in Superflex, I've gone QB early. And then I normally punt my QB2 a bit and draft later. But that group seems to fall to me in like the 3rd and even 4th round. And I just said, well, screw it. I can't pass on these guys in the 3rd round of Superflex. So I have a lot of teams with like a really high end, one of the top 5s, paired with someone in the group of Dak. I like Dak. I get, since the ankle injury a few years ago, his rushing's really been probably cut in half, but he's still always a threat to throw for 4,000 yards and 30, 40 touchdowns. So I think he is about as consistent as they come. I don't know if he necessarily has the QB1 upside, but QB4 upside's not terrible. So I like him, especially like you said, this offense is him and CeeDee Lamb. So there's not a whole lot to help him. We'll get to that running back room where it's not exciting. We've got Zeke, who is back in town, RB33 last year, 40 off the board this year, followed by Rico Dowdle, the diminutive Deuce Vaughn, Royce Freeman, didn't know he was still playing, Malik Davis, Hunter Lepke, who was kind of a fullback at ND State, and Snoop Connor, who I thought was still in Jacksonville. So we've got a lot of running backs in this room. Unless Zeke still has something left at, what is he, 29? I've never been all that impressed by Rico Dowdle. Deuce was kind of the mini guy where it's, maybe a gadget thing. I have a few shares of Zeke because someone's got to do it. And even at his age, I think Zeke might be the guy. But what do you think here? It's kind of a mess.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm a huge Dallas Cowboy fan. I am excited to see Zeke back. I think he's back where he belongs. But this running back room is just tough to deal with. I will say Zeke is kind of a steal based off of where he's falling, just because he probably will be treated as the RB1 in this offense. But I actually do like Rico Dowdle. He showed up really well. He was a big, fresh, like those fresh legs on him with Pollard last season just really was, at least for me as a fan watching it, he showed up really well. I like Lupke. I think he should have more involvement in the offense. I actually think he'll actually be a big piece. He's more of that H-back type of role. He can be a tight end. He can be that type of player. So I do like him. He doesn't have strong value, but I do think he's going to be someone who I think could affect Zeke in the red zone because Zeke's value will be the red zone. That's about it.
Yeah, I don't know if he seems to be that all-purpose back like he used to be. Seemed like he was a great dual threat, but I don't know. I preferred him over Tony Pollard. I knew that, and then they went to Pollard, and I said, "Oh, they should have kept Zeke." So I guess it's 28 here, so he's not the youngest, but like it's not unheard of for backs to keep going here. So I don't think he's dead. Running back 40 and ADP seems about the right price. He's going in the range of like Gus Edwards, and I'm just looking, I'm going, this could be a potentially free RB1 here. And even if he's not great, even if he's a flex worthy or an RB3 as the RB1 in Dallas, that's got to be worth for RB40 price, right? Like that RB40's got to be, that's 150th overall. Like we're talking a late ass pick here. So I just think it's a free pick. If he misses, oh well, I can drop him, but
yeah.
All right, let's get to the more exciting part here. We have the wide receiving room. By more exciting, I mean CeeDee Lamb, who finished first and is going as wide receiver 1, backed up by Brandon Cooks, who seemed to always be perennially undervalued. Lately, he hasn't really been performing up to it. Still undervalued, I guess. Finished as 38, RB1 wide receiver 38, going as wide receiver 59. Backed up by Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin, Ryan Flournoy, and Jalen Brooks. The only one I really have a share of, I think, is Turpin, and it's because I took him in the Scott Fish Bowl because of the return yard potential. This seems like a team where I want maybe Zeke, Lamb, or Dak, and I guess Ferguson, but I don't really want any of these receivers. I know Cooks is probably a decent late round guy, but I just don't know how much upside there is here at his age. He's 30. What do you think here of these receivers?
I actually like Tolbert. I think he is slept on because where he was drafted, there was some value, and then he struggled his rookie year. Obviously, Gallup was still on the roster, who was paid really well, so he, of course, had the wide receiver 3 spot. Tolbert falls into that role. Cooks does have some value, but again, he's somebody you don't need to draft, just like Tolbert. Turpin does have value if you are a team or a league that values the kick return, punt return, because he will be very valuable. Yeah, he'll be very valuable in that aspect. But secretly, the only player I really love, obviously besides CeeDee Lamb, is I do have a lot of shares of Tolbert, especially in Dynasty, because I think he'll end up he'll surprise some people this season. He looks really good so far in the videos and camps I've watched. I like where he has fallen because again, no one has any value for him.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys where I liked him a decent amount in his rookie year. He was not last year's class. He was the year before, right?
Correct. Yep.
And he's one of those guys where he didn't hit as a rookie. I guess he didn't. I know there was an injury concern, but he just kind of went from a possible sleeper to he's completely off the fantasy radar. And he's definitely someone I have on my board. I'm not done my Scott Fishbowl draft, so he's definitely someone I have on my queue. Once we get into the last couple of rounds here, that I'll take a shot at. Perhaps the more interesting part here is the tight end room, which has a handful of guys who I thought would be fantasy relevant at one point. Jake Ferguson finished as tight end 9, going as tight end 10. Luke Schoonmaker, who I'm a Michigan fan, so I never thought he was all that great going into last year. Peyton Hendershot also had some talent, not sure how much upside. And Brevin Spanford was someone who I thought was pretty good, had a terrible combine and fell right off the board. So I don't know. This looks like it's probably an all Ferguson here, but I don't know. There's not a whole lot of pass catching options here. Does Dallas run much 12 personnel? Could they be running, two tight ends here with Ferguson and one of the others?
No, 12 personnel is not something that Dallas is known for. Their offense is really, you got your 3 receivers out. That's why I think, again, that's why I like Tolbert. But Ferguson obviously does have a lot of value. And last year was his first full year. That was his first year as the starter, So I like Ferguson a lot. I don't think he's getting enough respect. I think he's got a lot of value. I think he could finish in the top 5. just because I do have some concerns with other tight ends in that are being drafted ahead of him. Schoonmaker, man, that was a kind of a shock when Dallas drafted him
Yeah,
in the second round. That was I thought a waste of a pick for Dallas
yeah.
because they had Jake Ferguson. They clearly liked his talent, but their offense isn't built to have two tight ends on the roster at all times. So for me, I don't think he has any value. I know people drafted him in Dynasty because of his draft capital, but unless Ferguson is hurt, Schoonmaker doesn't have any fantasy relevancy at all.
This roster screams a place where Michael Thomas, I know he's ancient and been injured, but this screams like a place where he could sign during the preseason. And I mean, he probably isn't any better or worse than Cooks, but he's almost free. And maybe you get him on the field and hope there's one last season left in him because he was awesome, not that long
Mhm.
ago. I get it. He's a lot older, but it's kind of a bleak roster here. All right, moment of
Yeah.
truth. At their cost, I've got the ADP up here in the fourth column. Who's a player on the team you're looking to target, and who's someone you're looking to avoid?
I am continuously targeting Jake Ferguson.
Okay.
Because I do believe that I think he'll absolutely be a top 10 tight end, but I think he'll end up being someone that could potentially be in the top five. Um, the last 6 games of last season, he finished top 10 or better in half of those games. He also, again, consistently had plenty of receptions. He finished over 70 receptions, over 700 yards. He did have 5 touchdowns. Now, my only concern that I had with Jake Ferguson last season was the last 5 games he had 0 touchdowns. So that was a concern. But being now into year 2, as the full starter, again, having that rapport with Dak, the lack of receiving options in this offense besides CeeDee Lamb and or Cooks, I just think Ferguson falls into that 100+ target season again, 70 to 80 receptions. I don't think he'll quite squeak that 1,000, but I do think he falls in that 6 to 8 touchdown type of performance. And I think his improvement will be also some of a addition, by subtraction. I think some other tight ends that are highly touted right now may not have the season that we're all thinking of. That may
Yeah.
fall a little bit, which allows Ferguson to be there. And again, being that his ADP is just, I think, really low, I think he's got a strong value. Um, I think, you got your big names, your Kittles, your Kelseys, your Laportas. I'm going to grab other elite players, that's really tough positions like running back or wide receiver before I grab one of those tight ends.
I'm not so much worried about like the age cliff, which I guess is possible for guys like Kelsey, Andrews, and Kittle. But I was looking at some of the metrics for some of the other tight ends, like the Engram, Laporta, McBride, the
Yeah.
Njoku. There's a lot of tight ends who could be destined for some real regression here back to the mean because they had real outlier seasons. So I could
Mhm.
certainly see him being a value.
Yeah.
Let's get here to the schedule portion. I'll tell you the game. You tell me win or loss. Pretty much every team who's done this so far has finished with 12 wins. So if you give the Cowboys 11 wins or less, they're going to have the number one pick because I guess people are really high on their teams in July. So week 1 at Cleveland.
I do believe it's a loss.
A loss. Oh, we're starting out cold. I think you're the first person who's
Cleveland,
predicted their team to lose to the start.
I just think Cleveland's actually a really good team.
I do as well. So I think Dallas is a good team too, but I think Cleveland's probably a top 5 for me. From the looks of it too, you've got my top 4 are San Fran, Detroit, Baltimore, Cleveland, and then KC. So it looks like you guys face 4 out of my top 5 squads here. So not a great schedule.
Yeah.
Week 2, home to the Saints, who are my
That
favorite
should
team, but they're garbage.
that should be a win.
Yeah, they're garbage. Week 3, hosting the Ravens.
I'm gonna go with the home field. I know that's a little rough. I do think they squeak out the win against Baltimore.
No, I won't fault you. Like I said, if there was a win in Baltimore, I might have more of an argument. But you took the loss in Cleveland and took the win in or at home against Baltimore. I can't really argue with that. Week 4 at the G-Men.
Win.
Win. Week 5 at Pittsburgh.
I do say that's a win.
I agree. Week 6. This one is tough because it's at home, but I like the Lions. So week 6, home to the Lions.
So this is the revenge game for the Detroit Lions because of last season with that whole crazy ending. I do think Detroit ends up squeaking out.
I forgot about that one.
Oh yeah, that was a fun one.
So you have them going 4-2 into the bye. This might be the toughest one on their schedule. Week 8 at San Fran.
I want the win. It's going to be a loss.
Yeah, that's a tough one for any team. Like I don't think there's a single team that I would pick to go into San Fran and win. Maybe the Chiefs, but like that's pretty much a loss for any team for me.
Yeah, if Ayuk actually gets traded, that might change a little.
Yeah, that could be very well true. Week 9 at the Falcons.
Even though I do think the Falcons will make the playoffs, I think they lose to the Cowboys.
I had it written down as a win before you said it. Week 10, home to the Eagles.
They do beat the Eagles at home.
All right. Week 11. This one's a little more interesting. I'm not sure what to make of Houston if they were a one-hit wonder. Home to the Texans.
Texans win.
Okay. I guess it's a relative home game considering, it's in the same state. Week 12 at the Commanders.
I actually have them splitting this series. I have them losing.
Oh, you have them losing. No, I did not have that one.
Jaden Daniels scares me.
All right. Week 13, home to the G-Men again.
Sweep the Giants.
Yep, that's fair. Week 14, home to the Bengals.
I think they take the Bengals.
I agree. Week 15 at Carolina.
They'll beat Carolina.
Absolutely. Week 16, home to the Bucks.
They'll beat the Bucks.
That one's a little tougher, but I can't argue it. This one's the interesting one for me. Week 17 at Philly.
They'll lose to the Eagles.
Yeah, okay. I thought you were going to split the difference here. Take the home, lose the road. And week 18, they finish it out hosting Washington. I think you're going to split here. Yes. Yeah. So you have them 11-5. So congratulations. They're going to get the number 1 pick next year. They're not. I don't think you actually have them as bad, but
yeah, I look at that and I'm very realistic when it comes to this roster.
No, I don't mind it. I think that was pretty solid there. I like it. All right. So I think that's it for the Dallas Cowboys. Once again, before we get out of here, take a second, tell everyone where they can find you and your work.
Again, you guys can follow me on X at AVGJoes_FF. You could also look and find me on YouTube at Average Joe's Fantasy Football. And again, check out some of my articles with IDP Plus. I do some stuff there once every other week or so for them as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you again to Steve for joining me, and thank you all for tuning in. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow with, for the life of me, I can't remember who's tomorrow's team. But anyways, we're doing another team tomorrow. So take care. We'll see you then. Bye.